We're all stressed out.
Yeah! What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Today we are talking about Season 6, Episode 2, Rocks and Shoals. We're recording this and dropping this a little late because we have been busy. Mike's doing house stuff, and as I mentioned on the post, we have been volunteering in various ways on the election, which by the time you watch this might have already happened. Unclear, but we are recording this on November 1st.
I will say this, though, Keith. I do have one rule for our community.
Let's hear it.
Regardless of which side of the fence you're on, whether you vote, don't vote, or vote for one of the two sides, or vote for a third-party candidate, or write in, or however you do your thing.
Don't do that.
That's on you. It's your privacy when you go behind those poll things.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
But don't be an asshole.
Yes, you know what? That is fundamentally
Just don't be an
fundamentally the most important part. We are a family here on the show, which means we don't always agree, and we might fight over the mashed potatoes.
But damn it, we're going to sit at this table.
Let us not be mash holes to each other.
Yes.
That's all I care about the most of anything else.
All right.
So let's get into the show itself and talk about your feelings about last week's season premiere of Season 6, A Time to Stand.
Wait.
Lots of feelings here. Yes.
First, let me pull it up. Oh, I forgot to change the thing.
Oh, no.
I did it again, Keith.
You know, we may be political. We'll never be professional.
No. Okay, so, you know, we've talked about this in earnest before, about how, you know, you always try to be a little bit better the next day, right? My birthday's coming up, and every year I make the same pledge. I want to be a better guy. I want to be a better friend. I want to be a better husband. Today I'm going to be the better podcast host because I like to admit when I am wrong. And yesterday was Halloween. We handed out candy. You know, it's the first time in my adult life I've handed out candy.
Jen said that last night.
The votes were overwhelming.
Yes.
Apparently, I am in the strict minority of people who do not care for candy corn. Let me ask you this first. Did I ask you this? What is the flavor of candy corn? What are we approximating?
Well, because it's sort of sugar and butter and a little bit salty if it's done right. It is sort of a caramel. It's like a slightly undercooked caramel flavor, I believe is what we're going for.
Okay. Well, listen. Like I said before, the votes are in. They've been tabulated.
Yeah.
I will give the peaceful transfer of candy back to you.
Of candy goodness?
Yeah.
All right, but here, all right, so if we're going to go into the candy corn, let's go into the candy corn. However,
nobody
not
hands
all
it
candy
out.
corn.
You don't see people handing candy corn out. It seems to be a personal,
it's incredibly divisive. You know, in this divisive times, people nobody has a feeling about candy corn. But I have very strong feelings about the brand of candy corn. And see, what I have here is some Zachary's from the dollar store. Let me tell you, not good, no flavor. So I need like the Brocks are good because I need a little hint of the salt in there to bring the flavor out. These are kind of tasteless, and so
I thought the
just
point of candy
tasteless
corn was to be like Twinkie-esque in that you could keep it in your house for years and it.
Oh, for sure. No, this is like I'm doing a lot of preparation for the apocalypse, which may be coming in like 4 days. So this is gonna thing that's gonna last. I have canned food. I have like dehydrated stuff. This is gonna last longer than all of them. So
yeah, I have less trepidation about the apocalypse. But that said, I'm also poor. So that is the reason why I have no food in the house. It's not that the shelves are empty. It's I can't afford anything.
Did I mention I got these apocalypse candies from the dollar store?
Let's go ahead and
all right, let's get into
cue this up because
that's right. For the second time, we're going to talk about what you thought about A Time to Stand.
There we go.
There it is. And Brian from Video Game Drive-By says, hold on, let me make sure I've got all of the comments because last time, sometimes I missed them. In fact, that means we're going to go in a different order. We're going to start with Mysterious Anne, who says, first off, Team Candy Corn, hooray, but even more so, Team Mellow Cream Pumpkins. Yeah, the pumpkins are really good. However, they frequently come with all the other assorted, like the chocolate candy corn and the other nonsense. Hard no, but yes to Mellow Cream Pumpkins. This is picky, but it's always bugged me that they had O'Brien complain about the food when it's well established that he's developed a great love for MREs while fighting the Cardassians. That is such a good point, and you're 100% right. And I'll tell you why that mistake was made. Because there are some actors out there who are so like incredibly detail oriented, and they've got this whole thing in their head, and like the immersion of it is really, really important. And then there's Colin Meaney. He just shows up and does his job, man. He doesn't care. So he's like, I probably know that, but like, I do not want to take 20 minutes and rewrite this.
Though, if I may,
yeah.
And I appreciate, who was it that wrote this? It was Anne, right?
Mysterious Anne.
Yeah. I appreciate the comment, the nitpick, if you will, because if we are going to praise week to week how incredibly detailed they are with laying out the booby traps to set them off, then we must hold them accountable for when they blatantly blow on with character lore.
Yeah, fair enough. The problem with O'Brien is that his character lore goes so far back because it goes back to the first episode of Next Gen. So he's been around a lot. His pages in the show Bible, pretty detailed. So anyway, Anne continues. I also don't love that they tried giving the Bashir-Garrick relationship a Spock-McCoy makeover, which they kind of did. Your read on it made me a little bit more open to the new dynamic of the relationship. But he's a computer jokes still bug me. Yeah, that is 100%. I don't even think I clocked that, but that's clearly what's happening there. But the way they depict the occupation is truly brilliant, and we haven't even gotten to my favorite example of them showing the way it can wear on your soul. When I read Václav Havel, I think about this part of Deep Space Nine, and I wonder if the writers were inspired by what he wrote about life in occupied communist Prague. Interesting. Oh, it's a very heady comment. I love it. 85 self-sealing stem bolts, and lastly, chiming again, also, you guys know I'm a podcast gal, but when I listened to this week, I knew I had to come over and watch the promotion ceremony for Ensign Mike. So good. Congratulations,
Thank you.
Ensign.
Thank you so much.
Jose Gonzalez IV also says, great promotion ceremony. Alan T. Girton says, congratulations, Mike, on the new house.
Hey, thanks.
Congratulations, Mike, on achieving the rank of ensign. Team No Candy Corn. Alan, why are you taking Mike's side on everything?
Well, me and Alan, we have an understanding.
Jeez. 97 self-sealing stem bolts.
Alan and I have an understanding, yeah.
Yeah.
Have we mentioned the neurodivergence?
That's becoming like, all I do now with my neurodivergent brain is research all the ways I've been neurodivergent and not known about it for 40-something years. So
but
that's
no,
all I
you
think
have
about
known.
these days.
You've known.
No. Everyone in my entire life knew, except for me. I was the only person surprised by this new understanding. So, literally, and you think I'm kidding? I'm not. I genuinely was surprised, despite many people telling me that for years and years.
Although I would, I don't want to minimize it. Forget it. Let's go.
Kevin Miles says, I give this episode 98 self-sealing stem bolts. What more can I say that hasn't been said? I am pro candy corn. Kevin Miles, thank you, sir. YouTube viewer says, the important thing we agree on is that apple Skittles are trash. Absolutely. And Ever the Contrarian, disproving what I just said just mere minutes ago. YouTube viewer says, I am indifferent to candy corn. If you offer me some, I'll take a few, but I will pay no money for it. Bashir didn't say the Federation had a 32% chance of winning the war. He said that they had a 32.7 chance of personally surviving. You can survive and lose the war or die while your side still wins. Yeah, fair enough. I would imagine fussing over a wedding would be a good way to avoid the existential dread from a war. Yeah, man, I wish I were getting married right now. That would really help fill my brain. In my headcanon, I had the theory that Dukat wants the love and respect of all Bajoran people, and symbolically he believes that if he can win over Kira, he can win over any and all Bajorans. But there's an unnerving sexual aspect to it that makes my skin crawl. That is a perfectly put encapsulation of what we were trying to say. As awful as American news, it's a damn sight better than the news in Russia and China. Yeah, we're just headed there. I would say Cardassians are allegorically Yahtzees mixed with opera villains, but the Dominion is a more realistic, modern autocracy. Yeah, 100%. Deep Space Nine has better visual effects than any other pre-2000s Star Trek, but they still have major issues being inconsistent on the relative scale of ships. Yeah, that's true, although in space, maybe they're just a lot closer than we think. We don't, could be foreshortening. I don't think it's a wormhole that Odo didn't manipulate his godhood sooner. Odo doesn't like being in charge in the traditional. Even as head of security, he doesn't like to delegate. Very much a, if you want things right, do it yourself approach to leadership. I think it's a minor wormhole that they did add chairs, that they did not add chairs, biobeds, or food replicators to the Dominion ship. There's no reason they can't add in modular versions of Federation equipment, but it doesn't affect the story in a major way. Agreed. Keith's rewrite of the explosion is much better than the original. I get a win. Saves.
I think we both rewrote that. I want my 2 cents of that.
I rewrote it first. You're just a Johnny come rewrite lately.
Okay. I don't think that's accurate in any way. I think.
You know what I'm not gonna do? Rewatch us and find out.
I'm pretty sure we were of like minds on that.
Yeah, yes, I said something brilliant and you agreed.
No.
Save our lives, but beats up our ship is a good idea. I give this episode 90 out of 100 empty canisters of Ketracel White with a bomb inside. Well played. Joshua Cronin says, as I always say, there's not a bad episode of Deep Space Nine, but this arc we're in is incredible. Mm-hmm. Pay attention to every little detail, Mike. It will all be addressed. And so, well, Mike, the more you pay attention to the details, the more delicious
I got yelled at
is.
on this week's watch along because I was talking too much to Jen. And listen, I try to go back and watch them a second time, but it's my watch along, Keith. You don't get to set the rules for me. I enjoy how I enjoy. I'm not doing a dissertation. I'm watching TV.
I mean, yes. However, the entire premise of this entire show is for us, who have seen it a million times, to watch it all again through fresh eyes. You are, sir, those fresh eyes.
Yeah, but so it's not a great if you want to watch the show again, go watch. If you want to watch me watch it, I'm going to talk. I chat. It's an engaging thing. I can't. If you want to just look at my face while I stare at a screen, that's weird.
Yes, that is exactly what people want.
I'm a talker. I'm sorry. But interestingly, not at the movies. I get pissed. I can't. But when I'm watching TV, it's a social thing.
This is the movies.
It's not the movies.
Folks,
it's not the movie.
Hey guys, can you tell we're 4 days out from an election and maybe just a little stressed out? Oh my God.
The stress of it all.
The stress of it all.
Of life,
yeah.
Man. Life is stressful.
Life is coming. We're driving 3 hours to go see wrestling tonight.
I've made all these plans for the house, for the base. I'm measuring this. Everything was, and then now I'm trying to apply these things, and literally nothing is going as I planned. Like this.
Oh, I should have warned you for that.
Yeah, the outlets aren't the right thing. The studs aren't in the right place. This is too big. That's not right. It's like I've spent more money and then returned it to Amazon more in this process, right? Because I wanted to pre-have everything so I could just go, yeah, no.
Well, that some brilliant person advised you to come in, do as little as possible, live in it for a second.
Yeah, you're right.
Then figure
it out. I bought 15 doorknobs. 0 of them fit.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. That's where I'm at. Basically, I was like, forget it. I'm going to stay in the apartment. We'll move when we have to.
No, don't despair. You will find the right knockers. That's what we're all searching for in our lives. Anyway, Joshua Cronin continues.
Nailed it. That was a great. Well, you deserve.
That was worth it. Anyway, as Joshua Cronin was saying, pay attention to every little detail, Mike. It will all be addressed. And so, well, this season definitely cannot just be put on in the background and listened to.
I feel very called out right now.
Yeah, well, it's Captain Jagarrett, okay? Jagarrett.
They're Windows!
Windows on the Enterprise. We have a long way to the end of Season 7, but there is so much in between, and I'm beyond excited for you to experience all of it. By the way, congrats, Ensign Mike! And Keith, I too love candy corn! I buy so much of it this time of year, and I don't eat it alone. I mix it with peanuts.
I feel like if it was gummy, actually in a mix, I think there's hope for me. It's the texture of it is like mealy to me. It's not right. I think with peanuts and something harder, like a crunch scenario, I think it could work.
No. Circling back, as always, to neurodivergence, we do not mix texture.
Sorry.
Yeah.
This actually there might be something to this. Do you like the marshmallows in cereal?
Oh yes. However, your next question is obvious. Do I eat all the crunchies first and save all the marshmallows, then eat them? You're damn right I do.
See, I hate the marshmallows in cereal.
I'm not an animal.
I like marshmallows, but not cereal marshmallows. So I think there's a connection here. I don't know. I can't figure out what it is, but I had a suspicion you would like them and I wouldn't. Because they're in the candy corn family, in my opinion.
No, for sure. Yeah, they're sort of like mild flavored texture sugar bombs. But yeah, no, I definitely you can't eat them
dry though, right?
Oh, I only eat them dry. So I will sit down with a bowl of
that is an absolute atrocity.
So I pick out all the crunchies. So I can save all the marshmallows to the end.
Oh, see, I would just eat the crunchies.
See, now this would work. See, you are the opposite of Jillian, who, through the course of our marriage, we only had one true betrayal, it wasn't the end of the marriage. It was when I early on in dating. Now I bought a dollar store version of Lucky Charms. Mm-hmm. And it was called Magic Shapes, but it was still the same principle, right? You have the little crunchy things, then you have the dried marshmallows in there.
Right.
And anyway, I've got this treat, got this wonderful thing to look forward to. Mm-hmm. I've got my delicious Magic Shapes. And I come down one morning, and somebody, I'm not going to say who, Jillian, in the middle of the night came in and ate every single piece of magic, only leaving me a box of shapes. And that was a betrayal. I can't believe we continued to be married after that.
Well,
a betrayal
worked out properly. It worked out the right way.
But you're the opposite.
Yeah.
You would only eat the Jillian just texted me, I can hear you.
I mean, that is terrible.
Betrayal!
Let's move forward, shall we?
Yes. All right. So this is our cereal segment here, when we're a third of the way through all of these. All right. So Brian from Video Game Drive By, she says you shouldn't have left your magic out. That's true. I need a giant safe for my magic. All right. So Brian from Video Game Drive By says, guys, if you're expecting a professional and tight episode, chapters, it's not going to be that today. We're not in the headspace for that. Brian says, glad to have you all back. This is my favorite season, I think. Glad you have a place to call your own, Mike.
Thank you.
My plans are moving forward nicely, too. Excited to see your new studio. Double congrats to Mike on his promotion. That ceremony was glorious. Godspeed, Ensign Mike. Candy corn is excellent. Woohoo!
A little bit of something for everybody in this one.
Yeah, it's just candy corn. The cat's gonna be eating candy corn off the floor. He won't. Candy corn is excellent, except for the turkey dinner flavor. Don't look it up. That sounds terrible. I cannot. This is it, y'all. This is the story of Deep Space Nine. This is where it's all heading. Dukat at the height of hubris, Sisko at the height of leadership, everyone caught between them at the best versions of themselves. I love the brave opening shot of the same fleet from the end of last season with their rears thoroughly kicked at the beginning of this one. I'm so excited and jealous for you to see where this goes from here for the first time.
Keith, I've actually put I think you should, this is a good side note. Did you know, whereas you can Google alert things, you can also ask a Google to hide certain things from you.
Really?
Yeah, so I've put Deep Space Nine into my filter out, right? So I have to have a block, so I am not risking spoilers.
Holy crap, that's cool.
Because I'm really digging this, and it's really hard for me not to be binging it.
Can I have Google like crop out all pictures taken of me below this spot here?
Probably in another year or two, yeah.
Yeah, probably enough. All right, JD says, geez, I was thinking a silly trumpet flare sound effect and a firecracker. Keith had a time of your ceremony. Of course I did. If you are a red shirt that never dies, that makes you the most interesting man in the world.
We get one this week, actually.
Yes, one of them makes it. That's right.
And I was floored.
Well, there you go. Mike, I will shove a bag of candy corn down your throat. Woo! There is no better honey-flavored confection in the world. Honey-flavored. That's right.
Yeah, okay.
I guess that's right.
I guess you've never had honeys? Those cough drops with like the
bit of
gooey
honeys?
ones? Yeah, I love those.
No, bit of honey. That's the delicious part.
You know what I really love as an old guy? It's butterscotch. Butterscotch and honey are adjacent.
Werther's Originals?
You know it.
Yeah. You know what? To be fair, I was an old man when I was 10.
Yeah, me too.
So,
I love those things.
I would go to the City Drug and buy Werther's Originals. But honestly, butterscotch, best of all of it. Love butterscotch. Anyway, all sort of the same thing. Sort of a buttery, sweet, little salty deal. I just really go for it. JD continues, love that Mike got my Acropolis joke and Keith just flew right past it. That is because I am cold reading. I am trying desperately to not trip over my own tongue, not so much on reading comprehension. I just had a vision of Elon as Wei-Yun and just accepted it.
That pretty much. That JD for the win, yeah.
That might be the best political critical analysis of the show thus far. I'm okay with not knowing why the bomb did and what it did stuff. It's life, and shit happens. Sometimes there's no explanation. I love this one so much because it's a new setup and a thing different than anything we've done for 5 years. I'm gonna go 99 self-sealing stem bolts. Get some rest, Mike. Mike, you get any rest?
Not tonight.
Neither one of us.
Yeah.
Hibernation Pod says, congrats, Mike.
Keith, is there a list of things we shouldn't have agreed to that we could add today too?
Every time I leave this basement.
I know it. Oh, man. Oh, forget it.
Full on, if I'm in this chair, I'm doing something I want to do. Other than that, it's not good. All right. Hibernation Pets. Hibernation Pod.
Hibernation pants?
Pants. Hibernation pants. I'm wearing hibernation pants.
I know. Wish I could get a pair.
The shock of immense escalation, then settling down after collecting myself as the war unfolds. Feels all too familiar now as per life, even though I am watching from the safety of a far-off, distant sideline. Wondering where the road will take them next and trying to balance the chaos, knowing everything could change so dramatically at any given moment. As the security of maintaining their paradise has been shattered, I remember during my original watch while moving forward, I was completely engaged. 85 self-sealing stem bolts. If you would like me to read your comments next week, you can become a patron at patreon.com/KNM, or leave a little super thanks, and I will happily read your comment. All right, we've been doing this for about 3 hours now. Let us move forward and talk about the episode Rocks and Shoals, which aired on October 6th, 1997. The top song, can't wait to hear it. Mike, it's your hometown, Boys to Men with 4 seasons of loneliness.
No, boys to men, ABC, BBD. It's the only. It's. I'll make love to you like you want me to, but only if you want me to, because I think it's important that consent is established, even in R&B.
As is recycling. As we reduced, reused, recycled that joke from when we did this on the How to Practice podcast. Green. We're very green here.
Yeah, 100%.
The top movie, also important for consent. If you're going to kiss the girls, the Morgan Freeman and Ashley Judd movie, which I recently just watched.
Oh, yeah?
Came up on Hulu or something of that.
Cool.
Yeah, those like 90s serial killer movies, like, they have such a like 90s flavor to them. Like, they're good. Also, like, deeply problematic.
Sort of, and sort of the same movie. You know what I mean? It's sort of.
They're all the same movie, and like they're all like, really interesting. They're well acted. They're well produced, and then they're all strangely a little bit transphobic. I think Silence of the Lambs sort of started that, and that became like that is the scariest thing we can possibly think of.
I mean,
So
to be fair,
that part does not age very well.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair.
Okay, please defend transphobia, Mike.
Mission is accepted. Regardless of the identification of said serial killer, anyone trying to serial kill me, I'm afraid of them.
Okay. All right. Well, heard it here first. Mike, firmly anti-serial killing.
I will plant that flag, Keith.
But you want to know what you are for? What was on TV tonight?
That's right, Keith. Can I tell you, and I'll be quick because we got to get this episode going. On ABC, Time Cop, we talked about that before. Yeah. NFL Monday Night Football, Denver Broncos beat out those Patriots. Always good when the Patriots lose.
That was John Elway's final season, I believe.
Yeah, Keith wrote a musical about it. You can search Google
Never
for that.
see it.
Yeah.
Although the fanfare from your promotion video was recycled music from Elway.
Lots of cool stuff. The two things I want to shout out here, which I find interesting, there was a show on NBC that was called Fired Up. You know Fired Up, Keith? They gave it
ready to go.
They gave it a quick, like 8-episode run, and then they renewed it for a full run, but it didn't quite make it. This was an NBC series. I can't even get a synopsis of what it was about, but I can tell you, it starred Leah Remini and Jonathan Banks on a sitcom, the comedy sitcom.
Jonathan Banks, he's got range.
Yeah,
he'd already done an episode of Deep Space Nine. He was firmly established.
No idea. I have to check it out on YouTube, I guess. But then there was another show also on NBC. They were trying to think of it called The Naked Truth, which I'd forgotten. Like, remember The Naked Truth?
I've heard of it, I think.
Well, let me remind you, Téa Leoni.
Oh, right.
Someone named Holland Taylor?
What?
Yeah.
Wow, the legendary Holland Taylor.
Yeah, in fact, it ran 2 seasons, believe it or not.
Wow, okay.
On NBC. So there you go. That's
I'll watch anything Holland Taylor is in.
Yeah, that was random dead shows that we've forgotten about.
Random dead shows? Well, it was Halloween last night. Makes sense.
Yeah.
What was Voyager doing? Also kind of Halloween-y. The episode Revulsion. Is the hologram evil? Well, I don't know. We're going to find out. So this episode, Rocks and Shoals, was directed by Michael Vehar, who last directed on Empok Nor. Also Halloween-y. It's a whole theme. And was written by Ronald D. Moore, the legendary writer. What do you say we do something trivial, Mike?
Yeah, sorry.
Now, Keith, waste your time with trivial trivia. Now Keith wastes his time by trying to pick up candy corn.
Well,
anything
it's,
for a
it's
bit,
like
right?
confetti, Keith. If you're gonna commit to the visual, you got to commit to the cleanup.
Yeah, it's. I was talking about it with some producer friends of mine with shows on Broadway that end with confetti cannons.
How about when we went and saw Slava Snow Show together opening night?
Yeah.
Imagine cleaning that up every night.
Yeah, just like what. I wonder how much it costs to clean the theater after every performance with confetti cannons.
I always think like we just saw the LA Dodgers win the World Series. Now, generally in sports ball, for those of you not particularly invested, you want to win the big championship at home so you can celebrate with your fans. The only people who appreciate when you win on the road is the cleanup crew at the home stadium.
No question.
Because they're like, oh, great, we don't have to clean. We don't have to clean that up.
Replace the entire drop ceiling from champagne. Yeah, for sure. All right, so trivial trivia. So during the filming at the rock quarry in Sun Valley, temperatures reached as high as 128. 128. This was the hottest period in that part of the USA in over 10 years. It's probably that yesterday. So hot that the makeup was melting on camera. If you look closely, you can see the eyes of the Jem Hadar are quite red due to the makeup dripping into the actors' eyes as it ran off their forehead. Yeah, it's very noticeable. However, Terry Farrell, she really played this episode well because she is so sensitive to direct and sustained sunlight that the producers chose to film her scenes in a cave on location at a rock quarry. So she got herself out of filming that because of her sensitivity to the sun.
Staying out of the sun, also how she stayed so young and beautiful all these years.
Indeed, forever, eternally. Worf does not appear in this episode, but there is a scene scripted at the very end of the episode where Worf and Martok arrive with the Rotaran and rescue the stranded crew, but it was cut for time and budgetary reasons.
And because Michael Dorn was like, hell no, it's way too hot to put that makeup on, go out there.
I think, but the script that I used while working on this episode did have that scene still in there. Utterly unnecessary. So this episode...
Much like the first 45 minutes of this episode.
Just pretty much like any one of our episodes.
Yeah, fair.
I mean, Mike, I don't want to blow your mind, but do you know that there are other Star Trek Deep Space Nine recap episodes or series out there?
Yeah, I assumed so. Yeah,
and they're better than us. So
yeah, I figured that as much as well.
That's fairly obvious as well. Yeah. So we are entirely unnecessary, but
yeah, but love it anyway. Are any of them virgins?
I'm imagining probably most of them.
No. I mean, like, I've never watched it before.
Oh, okay.
Well, you need a ladder, buddy, for that one?
Anyway, where were we? Yes. Oh, so this episode was filmed after the follow-up episode, next week's episode, Sons and Daughters, to accommodate the location shooting. Although this did cause a great deal of confusion on the writing and producing team trying to remember what happened first, because it's all so serialized now. Rocks and Shoals was the informal name of the articles for the government of the United States Navy. These articles were known for triggering swift and harsh punishment and were replaced by the Uniform Code of Military Justice in 1951, basically laws and such. The original idea for this episode came from the World War II film None But the Brave in 1965, a film about the interactions of a crew of a downed American plane and the Japanese Army patrol who find them. I don't know if in that movie they got along or came to some sort of peace, but you want to know who we always get along with and who are our sources of peace in our heart, Mike?
Keith, that would be the patrons. They are, in no particular order except the one Keith put on the slide: Brian Kimball-Biersick, Peter Bank, Frank Rinch, Quarks Bar, Yanba, Ryan Chesley, Andre, Romulan Shoulder Pad Enjoyer, Joshua Cronin, Merritt Neath, Andrew Hayes, Allen, and the mysterious and that mysterious household Worf's big-o boot shivs, Charles Babbage, Harry Pothead, Anton Thies, Carl Fisher, Brian from Video Game Drive-By, CRM Productions, Nikolay Ivanovich, Lobachevsky, YouTube viewer, James Hubbard, Hibernation Pod, Miri Holcomb, Odo's Bucket, Lost Emu, Scott B, JD Makes, Colin Dagan, Chris Mitchell, Frank Grinch, Pat, Joshua, Kevin Miles, Bolian for Soup, Lutz Kremer, Wyatt Eldridge, Andreas Erickson, Jerome A. Gibson, and Zontari. Don't you forget Chancellor Jen. She's the Chancellor, after all.
This
of course,
only happens by her consent.
that's true. And then, of course, we've got our Hall of Fame. These are the few and the proud who have just gone above and beyond, fiscally and in our hearts. I'm going to sneeze. Here we go.
Yeah, that is cue for Keith to try to bail me out, and
he didn't.
You know, I'm not going to.
Yeah. Don't know what that is. Don't know what's happening. I want to say, you know, we had a couple of patrons who went down a tier or two this week because of reasons. And I want to let you know you can do that. You can get in for as low as $1. That does help us out. It also lets us keep doing what we're doing, and you get access to all of the stuff on the Patreon. If you don't want to give us anything, but you just want to listen to the me watch along, you can also do that. And the Mysterious, that's how she enjoys it. All you have to do is become a member of the Patreon. You don't even have to give the money, but $1 is $1. You know what I'm saying? We appreciate everyone. We appreciate your time. And if you don't, just by engaging in our YouTube, leave a comment, a thumbs up. It helps support the show. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Yeah, for sure. All right, our guest stars this week are Andrew J. Robinson as Garrick, Christopher Shea as Kevin, Aaron Eisenberg as Nog, some other folks, and Phil Morris as Ramataclan. Now, Mike, do you know who Phil Morris is? I know how you are going to know Phil Morris, who plays the lead Jem Hadar here and does
Philip
such
Morris,
a fantastic
the
job.
agent?
That's William Morris. You're thinking Philip Morris, the cigarette company.
No, I was thinking about my first agent, Philip Morris. He was a 96-year-old man who lived in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. So,
well, luckily I got you a better one.
Okay.
And you know what you want for
She was
your
good,
New
man.
York
She was
theater?
good, man. She was
If you
good,
want
man.
to be successful in New York theater, you want a agent/bail bondswoman in Philadelphia. That is how you make your career
She was
happen.
good, man.
That's how you end up on a Deep Space Nine podcast. Yeah. Anyway, Phil Morris, you would know from Seinfeld. You would immediately notice him, and he has a terrific new or other part coming up on Voyager in many, many years. All right, what do you say we go into our screening room, shall we?
New 40 minutes, Keith, to get here.
40 minutes. And luckily, your filibustering the patron slide and our videos have allowed me to collect all of the candy corn that I threw onto the floor. And your question, dear viewer, are you still going to eat those? You damn right I am.
It's your basement.
You damn right I am. All right, so in our teaser, it has been 3 days, but our heroes are still trapped on the crippled Jem Hadar ship and are trying to repair it. But they are chased into a nebula by a couple of real Jem Hadar ships. They are attacked, they take major damage, and Dax is hurt badly.
I thought this was a cool composite they did, because you got the view screen through the eyeball ball, but also he's seeing kind of through it and Dax at her station.
I think it's a fantastic composite, especially for TV in 1997. I think it is incredibly effective. And again, we did not have the context of having worn a VR set that will allow you to mix reality, and we've never seen AR at this point. We've never worn Google Glass. Like, it's the fact that they were able to conceptualize this so accurately and so well visually is incredibly impressive.
When we did certain stuff like that in the 80s and the early 90s, it was all vector based, right? You would just like see the lines and like Tron style.
Yeah, so and there was no pass through whatsoever.
Yeah, this is cool.
Really very, very impressive, both conceptually and from the effect side. Luckily, the Jem Hadar ships don't follow them into the nebula. However, they crash land on a remote planet. And lots of... I thought, what a great shot that is, too.
Mm-hmm. There's a great little comedic beat with like using the word damn in there, too. That was cool.
Damn. So, in Act 1, we arrive on the planet, and we find a couple of Jem Hadar standing on a rocky shoreline. They apparently crash landed too, but 2 days ago. See, another great shot. I mean, again, that's 1997. These are composite shots as well.
Do you think that they wrote the Dax injury into the script because they knew they were going to have to stick her in the cave? Or
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, that was very much, they were like, we can't put Terry out here in this weather, so we're going to write her out, which is exactly what they did. Which is also why we don't really have any peril there.
I was going to say, there's no ticking clock. Clearly, she's...
Yeah.
It does create an interesting parallel with the Vorta, I guess. They're dealing with a similar situation, so...
Yeah, that's true. But they don't make a thing of it. They're like, here's the reason Terry's not doing the rest of this, but don't worry about it. That's not our story. So these other Jem Hadar have been here for 2 days, and they're also going to be holed up in a cave. Their first and second were killed in the crash, and their Vorta is mortally wounded. But the new natural leader, Vermeticlon, questioned the Vorta, so there is a power vacuum. But we don't know what any of this means yet. Meanwhile, Nog and the rest of the crew swim to shore after their ship landed in the water. This episode really benefits from location work. Being able to be on location, being able to have these visuals. We're not in the, the weird cave set. We're not in the, on a backlot. This is a real place. And
save
really cool.
One thing. I thought that first I wanted to commend, I don't know if this goes through the whole season. They might have just got lucky weather-wise, but they've kind of figured out how to shoot in this location, because the previous couple times we've been here, it's been really overexposed because of how bright and just exposed it is to the sun. But here they were able to do whatever they had to do, and it's actually shot really well, and the lighting is really well. The only thing that looks out of place, interestingly, I don't think I have a screenshot, maybe I do a little bit, is this little floaty platoon they're on. It definitely looks like a piece of set. It doesn't look like any sort of space rock or metal at all.
Well, yes. Also, I think they're using part of the hull of the ship to float everything on. That's clearly made of styrofoam, but I don't think the hull would float. But
you know what? For as much as that kind of it sort of it definitely it stuck out. Worth it for the little comedic beat with O'Brien. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. That does not look good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I think they didn't need any of it,
no,
right? Because we don't use any of these supplies, right? They're not part of any of that, and we could have dragged Dax to shore. Obviously, it's a way to get Dax up there but just you're writing an injury for plot reasons anyway. Just have Sisko swim her out. Anyway, doesn't matter, but I think the rest of it looks fantastic by doing that. So they have they swim to shore, which I thought was also very impressive that we start with Nog swimming with all that makeup. All that makeup had to hold through however many takes they did of him swimming out of it. And you get that great composite shot.
Oh, of the ship sinking? Awesome.
The ship sinking. So cool. And this is a composite shot because they do not have a shoreline. They're in the middle of a desert, or I don't know exactly where it is, but that the shoreline and the ship had to be digitally added.
And again, it also gets rid of the ship such that when if we are to be rescued, we get ourselves out of the whole marooned plot line too. Right,
and we can't go back to the ship for more supplies. We can't get a communications thingy from the ship. It is gone. It is done. So anyway, they've gathered a few supplies, but the ship is foundering in the distance. They carry a wounded Dax to shore, and O'Brien is sad he tore his pants. We head back to the station, and I love the couplet, seeing these two scenes, as we'll get the second context of this later. But Kira wakes up in her normal comfy bed, as comfy as Star Trek does at least, and she begins a normal day, even with a smile, which we see here, and she's embracing the new normal with the Cardassians and the Jem Hadar on the station. She sits down at her console with the cool chairs that slide in and out on tracks on the floor, which was I don't think I'd ever seen that before.
No, somebody brings her
The
a
chairs
coffee.
on those consoles are on tracks. Yeah, she gets her coffee, and she's kind of just chilling. Meanwhile, back on the planet, we meet the wounded Vorta, Kevin. He clearly has an antagonistic relationship with his underlings, and they're trying to establish communications, and they even have a gizmo, but the Jem Hadar are not great engineers. It's going to take 10 days for them to repair everything. But we have a ticking clock. Remetaclon says it's time for the white, and Kevin only gives him one vial. When a Jem Hadar objects, Remetaclon puts him back in place, but we know we have to ration the white.
Keith, this made me realize something. Number one, I think it's cool that even in this predicament, and I don't know if it's like a religious thing or if it's just a military thing, but it's always the Vorta that hands out the white, right? That he doesn't ever
delegate
that to that.
No.
I found that to be interesting, even in his precarious state. Complete side note, but I was watching this on Halloween, so important to point out. If we are to ever attend a Star Trek event together or decide to do cosplay of any sort, I've decided I will be a Vorta.
Oh.
I think the contacts are so cool. Probably a pain in the absolute ass to wear, and but rad. And I love the close-ups we get of the Vorta this week and of the Jem Hadar. It's actually a lot of awesome close-ups because you can really appreciate the prosthetic work and the makeup. Really well done.
And we'll say it later, but Christopher Shea's
holy crap,
detestability as this character is phenomenal.
Holy crap. And it works so well with what I think my favorite part of the episode is, which is my favorite word, the juxtaposition betwixt the Vorta and the Jem Hadar, who we'll get to it.
Yeah. It is a phenomenal performance as Kevin here. So anyway, we find out they're having to ration. So in another cavern, our heroes set up a shelter. They're all drying their uniforms on a rock they heated up, and we see they all have blue underoos under their uniforms. They try to comfort the wounded Dax. She's going to be fine, but she has to stay in the cave set because Terry has a good agent. The next day, Nog and Garrick survey the territory. And, interestingly, Nog does not turn his back to Garrick.
Great writing.
Garrick says, "You're deliberately trying to stay behind me, and I want to know why. Does this have something to do with the unfortunate business between you and me last year? You tied me up and threatened to kill me. And there were extenuating circumstances. It happened. So either stay in front of me or walk beside me. I won't turn my back on you again. Cadet, there may be hope for you yet." Great continuity there. Also directed by the person who directed this episode. Just love it. Just, and again, as everyone is talking about, what Joshua Cronin's talking about, all these little details, right? They're coming back. They're rewarding you for your attention, Mike. They're rewarding you for your attention with some delicious candy corn.
What's that?
Yeah. All right. Then they are swarmed by Jem Hadar soldiers who depredator themselves out of nowhere, and that is the end of Act 1. In Act 2, Kiva interrogates Nog and Garrick. Garrick tries to spin a complex yarn, as you know he was going to, but Kevin sees, of course, he is wearing a Starfleet communicator. As it turns out, all Kevin wants to know is if they have a doctor. Garrick says yes, but then says yes, and they're taken out. Then Kevin sets Remetaclon to the task of surveying the Starfleet camp. We head back to Deep Space Nine, where Jake questions Odo for the Federation News Service. He's doing some better reporting than we get a lot in real life these days. He's questioning their allowance of Dominion facilitators on Bajor. My readers want to know what's going on. You don't have any readers. Wayun is still blocking the transmission of your stories. For now, but if he changes his mind, don't you want to explain what's going on here to the outside world? Kira says, since the war started, Bajor has been completely cut off from all outside trade. We have nowhere to turn for things like spare parts and medical supplies. Nowhere except the Dominion. So, a group of facilitators is going to Bajor for a few months to provide technical assistance. And Jake says, how do you respond to critics like Vedic Yassam, who say that by welcoming a group of Vorta to the Bajor, you're taking the first step towards Dominion occupation? I've been assured the facilitators will be unarmed and unoccupied by any Jem Hadar soldiers. He also questions Odo about his participating in the ruling council, and he mentions there's a demonstration on the station tomorrow. And Odo says that's all the excuse Dukat will need to order a new security crackdown. Kira's like, I'll talk to Yassam. So you're going to abolish the right to protest on the station, which causes Kira and Odo to leave. So here's where we get to the heart of this B story, which is, this is not a comedic little B story. Mm-hmm. This is a really complex and difficult situation that Kira is being thrust into here, with this occupation and the reversal for Kira. Really fascinating. So, in our hero's cave, O'Brien works to try to get a transmitter, but they don't have the tech. And a red shirt comes in and says that Garrick and Nog are missing. So they head out with a search party. They find the Jem Hadar waiting on a cliff over them. They have the tactical advantage, and a firefight begins. And that is the end of Act 2. Again, you can the location shooting here just makes everything so much cooler. Mm-hmm. And they're and luckily they're just rocks, so they can blow up parts of it without damaging anything.
Yeah, the second firefight suffers from some SFX issues we'll talk about, but still works pretty good.
Still cool.
And it's cool how the Jem Hadar sort of blend in. They're very reptilian, so they blend in. It's cool.
Yeah, even when their predator stuff isn't working. Which I think because we questioned that, right? Whether the predator thing was a tech or not. And I think this episode confirms it's not tech, it's biological.
Yeah, which is actually different than actual predator.
Right. So that because they're on withdrawing, they can't cloak, which is interesting. So in Act 3, they battle for a while before Remeticlon is able to get them to stop firing. Your orders were clear. We are not to engage the enemy. Who fired first? I did. You are reduced to 6th. You will shroud and return to base camp. I can no longer shroud myself. They disengage and the battle ends. They go back to the caves, and the Vorta naturally is pissed. Why were my orders disobeyed? And Remeticlon says the lack of white produces anxiety among us. One man could not restrain himself when he saw the enemy. Kevin wants to punish the soldier who broke, but Remeticlon refuses. Discipline is his job. And Kevin sets him to a new task. And so, adding the layer here of the withdrawal from the white is not only going to be eventually fatal, but it causes them to be more dangerous. Mm-hmm. Which is and impossible to control. All of this is very interesting and important intelligence for the Federation, of course.
Yeah, I'm sure this has been explained, but so I understand the reason, obviously, you addict them to the drug, and you are in control of the drug, so that you have this uber control, right? Biologically, that makes a lot of sense, but it does sort of create a Star Trek, a Star Wars. There's the one hatch in the Death Star that if you put a bomb in it, it blows up the whole Death Star, right? It sort of creates that like ultimate Achilles heel. And since they're biologically created and bred, why would you just not breed them such that they're obedient without the slave juice?
Well, I would imagine they tried.
Right.
And they couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
That that genetics is incredibly complex, and it's amazing they're able to do as much as they can. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's unrealistic to think that they would have some things that they struggle with and some compromises they have to make.
And I also think it's really cool that if you create a super soldier, right? If you breed a super soldier, then inherently what you are breeding into them in order to be a super soldier, and not just super soldiers individually, but super army,
right?
They need order, discipline, and structure. And in doing so, you're sort of thwarting the Vorta, who are at times don't want to bypass some of those strict structures, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Vorta sort of inherently do not think in black and white.
Yeah.
They're diplomats. Everything's gray. Everything's manipulation. Everything is layered. Whereas your foot soldiers, you want blind obedience and blind and immediate obedience. And so there's always going to be inherently an incongruity in the way that they approach problems.
So this is kind of the point of the episode that I love the most, but I'll say it here and then we can talk about it later, is that obedience is bred in, for sure. However, blind obedience is an assumption.
Right. Well, and that's the part that it's hard to control genetics, right? Because then you have nature and nurture. Because they're not robots, right? You are breeding a genetic, organic being who has their own thoughts and feelings, and there's only so much you can breed into and out of, and culture, right? And just we as living creatures, almost any intelligent species develops culture. Well, whether it's dogs, whether it's whatever.
Even in I'll leave the parallels out. You can all figure it out. Like the assumption that the lowest rung, be it economic, be it socioeconomic, be it however you want to set it up, there are often the powers above assume that the lowest rungs of society, in however you want to categorize it, are stupid or are less than intelligently, and that's generally never the case. And so that assumption can get you into trouble,
or controllable.
Yes.
Right? And it always starts out with, here's the setup, and then we're going to carrot, and that doesn't work, we're going to stick, and when that doesn't work, we're going to do a harder stick, and then you overthrow us, and we all get our heads on pikes, and we start all over again. That is the human condition.
That is the order of things, Keith.
That is the order of things, Mike. So on Deep Space Nine, Kira meets with Vedic Yasam, who is this older lady here. And she says, the Dominion is evil, and the prophets tell us that evil must be opposed. Kira says, you'll get no argument from me there, Vedic, but protests and demonstrations won't change anything. They'll only cause trouble for everyone. Then what would you have us do to oppose the Dominion? I'm not certain there's anything you and the other Vedics can do right now. And says, I see. Then as the Bajoran liaison officer, what will you be doing to fight the Dominion? Fighting is not an option. This is different from the Cardassian occupation. Is it? The Cardassians are in control of the station. Bajoran freedoms are being curtailed one by one, and soon the first wave of alien troops will be landing on our world. We're talking about unarmed Vorta facilitators. They come in, they do their jobs, and then they're gone. Can't you see what's happening to you? You're becoming an apologist for them, a defender of evil. And this is such good, nuanced writing, because we've spent 5+ seasons on Kira's point of view, Kira making Yasam's point the entire time we've seen her, and now Kira's in this other position, and we see Kira's point. And, she's trying to save lives in the immediate. We're up against a foe that we cannot beat. But Yasam's also right. You can't just surrender. What do you do? And it's really, really interesting. And do I have apocalypse things in my basement? Because I think we might all be making some of these choices. Maybe, possibly, hopefully not. I don't know. But it's so complex.
I think often we talk about the loss of innocence in kids and in humans. And you also often tie it to, like, if you've been privileged enough to live a relatively trauma-free life, I mean, massive trauma, then when do you learn about Santa Claus, or when do you, have to pay your first bill or your car, like things like that. And some other people, the loss of innocence is a little more stark and dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, like, as a general rule, one of the things I've learned is when you start to learn that sometimes it's not an A-B choice, right? You're screwed either way.
Mm-hmm.
Those realizations are stark in adolescence when you start to realize, sometimes it's not like, okay, here's the right, because your parents try to raise you to, like, make the right choice in the situation. What if there's no right choice, right? And that's a question I think that Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, I'll say, has perfected almost at this point. This episode's a great example of, like, sometimes, what if there's nothing, even in both A and the B story, what if there is no right choice here? What if, like, do you go through the motions? Do you try to alter the course? What do you do?
Well, I think that it's a really good point you're making, because as a child, we say to kids, pick your battles, right? We say to adult, pick your battles. And I think that is very true, but that gets more and more complex the more and more the power imbalance gets out of there. Because, if you have a wild power imbalance, there is a difference. Like, like, okay, so if I'm in France and the Nazis have invaded, and I just charge the line with a frying pan, I'm just going to get murdered. Like, I'm doing the right thing. I'm fighting the good fight, but I'm just going to get murdered. And so, and that helps nobody and helps nothing. And so you start thinking in terms of short-term and long-term and medium-term. What's going to help, do the larger objective? What's going to do that? And also, so that puts you in a question of, like, when do I fight the fight, whether I fight the fight or not? And then you break it down from when do I fight versus when do I resist? Because there's a difference between resistance and fighting. Right. You resist in the short term to fight the larger battle in the long term, and it's so complex.
Listen, I mean, like, the platitudes that we give, I mean, like, you're not even a formed child yet. It's like, see something, say something. Always stand up for the little guy. You got to stand up to the bully. Don't be a tattletale. Go on, so on and so forth, right? And they are conflicting. They are at times unachievable. It's
well, and like, and for me, it's like, stand up for the little guy is a foundational principle for me. To fight injustice is, like, hardwired in me. That's just been my entire life. But how do you fight?
Yeah,
how
exactly.
do you fight for the little guy?
Because guess what? There's also the thing, the little guy has the right to be like, I don't need your help. I don't want your help.
Right. And how can fighting make it worse? How can you, because, like, I think about a couple of times in my life where I've been put in that position where it was just like on the subway once, and this man who was on the subway, who clearly had some mental health challenges, was getting close to assaulting this woman. Not sexually, but, like, you screaming at her, berating her, and whatever. And so I obviously am going to step in and try to help, but how I help is very important there, because if I go in there and I start screaming in his face and pushing him back, that's probably going to escalate it further and not really help anyone. So subtly standing in between the two of them silently and just being a physical barrier was probably the way that gets her out safe more than going in guns blazing and trying to start a fight. And so, like, is that cowardice? Is that wisdom? I don't know, but it is.
I guess that what I'm trying to say with this whole kind of side diatribe we've taken is that, and it seems so simple when you say it, but it's not. It's a whole life experience thing, is that when you're growing up, we often think, in religion, I'll use as an example, we'll send our kid to Sunday school, and they'll give them morals, right? That's a thing you hear often with people who are, when you have a religious debate about like spirituality versus non-spiritual, they're like, well, I don't particularly believe in all this stuff, but I just want them to have a good set of morals. Right. As if morals are like the 10 Commandments, right? A strict set of rules, if you follow all of the time, you're moral. Yeah. Truth, in my opinion, is that morality is knowing all of these things, right? And computing in the moment, in that situation, which apply, how to apply them, and doing your best. So a good sense of morality is sort of a supercomputer, your personal supercomputer to figure out these situations versus AI or computer, because there is no calculation that will give you the correct answer. It is your answer in the moment.
And that's why I think that that morals, to me, are not a set of rules. They're a set of principles,
guidelines, yeah.
And they're goals, they're objectives, they're philosophies. Not like, never eat something that's green, right? The goal is fight for justice. Well, there's a lot of different ways to do that, and justice itself is complex and can be argued, and that for me, true morality also is based on not just the objective or the principle, but also the why. And this is where I think a lot of, sort of fundamentalist religions, they tell you the why is because somebody said so. The why is so you get into heaven or you don't go to hell. And I believe that true morality, the why is because that is just. It is in itself enough to be the why. To fight, to fight for justice, to fight for equality. I don't need someone to tell me that that's important. I'm not going to take somebody's word for it. I'm not going to get some reward or punishment for it. It is in itself a moral imperative. That is what morality is. It justifies itself. It doesn't need another layer.
Now, as interesting and as complex as this conversation is that the episode is presenting us with, let's Deep Space Nine it and now put it in conflict with, but in wartime, there's a whole different set of rules, right? Because.
Yeah, well, and part of the fundamental injustice of an occupation is part of the trauma you are putting on them is moral trauma, forcing people into situations where you have to cross your own morals to survive or to help other people and to make these impossible choices, which they are impossible, and that's part of the trauma. Okay, anyway. Whew. So, you know what? We never record in the morning. So, where the hell are we? Okay, back in Sisko's cave, they are surprised to have Hermeticlon arrive to discuss the situation.
What's this actor's name too? Also awesome.
Phil Morris, that's the guy I'm talking about.
Yeah, great agent.
Look him up. Look up who he is in real life, and you'll be like, oh my god, it's that guy? So he offers to return Nog and Garrick in exchange for Dr. Bashir's service. He and Sisko have an interesting conversation where Sisko probes for cracks in the relationship between the Jem Hadar and the Vorta. Sisko says it sounds like he wants to trade 2 low-ranking prisoners for 2 more valuable ones. Would you accept a deal like that? No. Then why should I? You shouldn't. You're not a very good negotiator, are you? I was not sent to negotiate. I was instructed only to deliver terms. Must be hard for a soldier to take orders from a Vorta. The Vorta command the Jem Hadar. It is the order of things. Obedience brings victory, Sisko says. I was on a mission with the Jem Hadar once, before the war, of course. They were good, tough, professional, and it was an honor to serve them. But their Vorta, he was something different, manipulative, treacherous, trusted by neither side. In the end, he was killed by the Jem Hadar first. Now, Mike, do you remember which Vorta we're talking about here?
I don't remember the Vorta. I remember the episode with the military exercises and such, but I don't remember the Vorta.
The Vorta was Weyoun.
But didn't he say he died?
He did. Weyoun is a clone. That was Weyoun
right.
4. This is Weyoun 5 or 5 and 6. Don't come for me, nerds. 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever. Who the heck cares? It's a clone.
I mean, unless you're Michael Keaton in Multiplicity, the clones are all the same.
Well, or are they? That's interesting. So anyway, so like we're not talking about just any old Vorta. We're talking about one of the Wayuns. Super interesting. So Sisko says, surprised. It says,
hey, you know what they say, Keith? Everybody Wayun Chung tonight.
Such things have been known to happen. They are rare and only occur in units that have lost discipline. You mean like a unit marooned on the shores of a deserted planet? The Vorta have instructed me to give you his assurance that neither you nor the doctor will be harmed, and you'll both be free to leave at the end of your meeting. What is your response? Sisko. Great Siskoing here. A Vorta's word doesn't carry much weight with me. Can I have your assurance that we'll be free to go, Remetaclan? And he says, I have been ordered to let you leave after the meeting. You can be assured that I will obey that order. And with that, they are agreed. Sisko, knowing exactly how to go straight to someone's honor. It's the same thing as working with the Klingons. You go to honor. So in Act 4, the prisoner exchange happens on the road in the middle of a lake. It looks amazing being on location. All the dialogue here is ADR, sort of obviously, but like, what a cool image we just don't ever see on Deep Space Nine.
Oh, to use the reflection. Like that DP was like, yes, please.
Yeah.
Let me get that reflection. He knew exactly when to shoot it. They scouted when the reflections would be best in the sun. Well done.
So good. Back on Deep Space Nine, Kira and Odo prepare for the protest. They're nervous and don't want any trouble. Jake arrives, and they all watch in horror as the Vedic we met with says evil must be opposed, then hangs herself from the top of the promenade.
You know, Bajoran Vedics jumping off the promenade is their favorite form of protest. One hanging, one just grotesque neck cratching, but nonetheless.
Yeah, but it definitely is
trigger warning. I mean, nowadays that would get a trigger warning for sure.
Yeah, no, but it's definitely an oh shit moment that sort of escalates this well beyond the conceptual, right? And
it's very representative, right? Yes, it's this one Vedic, but her protest, to Kira, it's a representative of there are consequences.
And it is also reflective of, the monks who did this during Vietnam. And this is a real thing. And I think for Kira, she has been living with the protection of this being conceptual. With the protections of the banality of her day to day, and this becomes very real for her instantly, and a great escalation of the situation, and exactly what the protest is for, to wake people up out of the sort of comfort of normalcy. So on the planet, Bashir treats Kevin. On Deep Space Nine, Kira wakes up, and this time with a new weight on her shoulders. She does the same routine, but with new eyes. Great direction here to repeat all of the same beats. But now she's awake to the situation. Back on the planet, Bashir has saved Kevin. He tells all the Jem Hadar to leave so he can speak to Sisko privately. Kevin does. When they're alone, Kevin shows Sisko the case of Ketracel White. It was damaged in the crash, and he has only one vial left. He says, when it's gone, my hold over them will be broken. They'll become nothing more than senseless, violent animals, and they'll kill everyone they can, me, you, and the rest of your men, and finally turn on each other. Why are you telling me this? I'm going to order the Jem Hadar to attack your base camp in the morning, but I will provide you with the precise plan of attack. You should be able to kill them all. They're your own men. Yes. And he explains that he has a communication device. And, so bit of a heel turn here to kill all of his men. But on the other hand, he's not 100% wrong if that is going to be the outcome of running out of white.
what is your objective, right? If the objective is I want to live, right? Now that's not always the objective. Like a ship captain goes down with the ship, right?
Yeah.
So that's. I'm not saying that's right either. These rules are sort of arbitrary. That thing, which somebody has that line, actually in the episode. Like the rules of war, or whatever. I'm sure you have it in your write-up.
Yeah.
But
I forget, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's. So, I mean, he's operating from self-preservation and offering preservation to Sisko and his peeps.
In exchange for getting him off.
Yeah, but...
Not that way, you gross people.
But, so, I'm just saying, once again, it's like, it's complete... Yes, he's clearly being portrayed as the antagonist. However, the rationale is quite sound, in my opinion.
His logic is sound. His... integrity is terrible.
Now, I mean, that doesn't mean he couldn't send them on a scout mission 30 miles that way, and we could resolve the scene with, like...
We don't have to do it yet. He still has one more vial. They have time to be rescued.
Yeah, send them on a journey, give them the vial that way, and be like, don't hand it out until you're 16 miles out there, and then do a Burning Man retreat, and then they can fix the communication. So, you know what? I retract my sound rationale. He's being a bastard.
Oh, yeah. Yes, no, So Mike retracts his full endorsement of Keevan's behavior in this episode. So
it puts the weight in the basket.
Remeticlon does keep his promise. And Keevan says, and lets them go, but not before Keevan says, after you take care of the Jem Hadar, I will give you the comm system and surrender to you as a prisoner of war. And then you spend the war resting comfortably in a Starfleet POW while your men lie rotting on this planet. And Keevan says, I see we understand each other. I'm ordering the Jem Hadar to attack your position tomorrow regardless of whether you agree to my terms or not. So you can either kill them or they'll kill you. Either way, they're coming. Thus, taking the choice out of Sisko's hands. So in Act 5, reluctantly, Sisko sets up a plan to counter the Jem Hadar attack. From their better position, of course, it will be a massacre. Meanwhile, on the promenade, Kira tells Odo she's realized she's a collaborator. She says, we used to have a saying in the Resistance, if you're not fighting them, you're helping them. Half of the Alpha Quadrant is out there right now fighting for my freedom, but not me. How do I spend my time? I get a full meal every day. I sleep in a soft bed every night. I even write reports for the murderers who run this station. I'm not pointing my finger at you, Odo. I'm the one who told you to get more involved in the first place. No, this is about me. This is about being able to look in the mirror every morning and not feel nauseated by what I see. Yasim was right. I've got to do something. I've got to start fighting back. Odo says, that's a mistake. Active resistance will trigger a crackdown. Odo, excuse me, I don't want to end up fighting you too, but I'll do it if I have to. All right, but let's find a more discreet place to plan the new resistance. Here we go. Starting the resistance. And again, the
that feels like it was the original plan, though, right? The original plan was like, let's do what we got to do to get Odo up into the board and then get his Bajoran people on the security detail. That was step one. And then there was going to be further step. They just didn't plan ahead of that. And then I guess they got caught up in the mundanity.
Well, and they also point out that Sisko gave them orders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was...
What's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, mundanity?
The mundaneness. I don't think there's mundacity. There's mendacity. I don't think there's a word. I think you're trying to make a new word. I like the new word you're making.
Yes, mundaneness. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, but so Sisko's like, keep your head down, stay alive. We'll come back later. And she's realizing that she can't follow that order morally. But again, difference between active fighting and resistance. And this is what we're gonna do now, which I think is what the only thing you can do in a situation like this, where you are so thoroughly dominated. So, meanwhile, back on the planet, Sisko and team take their places the next morning. The Jem Hadar walk directly into the trap, of course, but Sisko calls out first. There's no way out of this canyon, and we have phaser locks on every one of you. You appear to have a decisive advantage. Hear me out. I know you need more Ketracel White. My doctor can sedate your men and keep them alive until we're rescued. After that, we can put you in medical stasis until we secure a new supply. So there are options. Hermeticlon says, the Vorta did not give me the option to surrender. What a great face.
The weird ponytail hair is bizarre, but okay.
Look, hair, it's the 90s. Hair wasn't great.
There's the red eyes, by the way.
Yeah, totally. Hermeticlon says, the Vorta did not give me the option to surrender. Keevan's betrayed you. He gave us your entire plan of attack last night. It was obvious that approaching your position through the canyon was a deliberate tactical error on his part. You knew? I suspected. Despite what Keevan may think, Jem Hadar are often one step ahead of the Vorta. Then you can stay one step ahead. Surrender. I have my orders. He hasn't earned the unwavering loyalty you're giving him. He does not have to earn my loyalty, Captain. He has had it from the moment I was conceived. I am Jem Hadar. He is Vorta. It is the order of things. Do you really want to give up your life for the order of things? It is not my life to give up, and it never was. Phil Morris is so great in this. The two of them working together in the scene, so good. Just great acting. And Phil's doing it through all of that makeup, but it is really, really clear. So the fight begins, and of course, eventually all the Jem Hadar are dead, along with one of the red shirts.
Someone on the VFX team got a little lazy.
Uh-oh.
And didn't time up his shots with Jem Hadar jumping to get struck. So it's quite a few of them start falling before the laser beam hits them. I don't know why I always catch that, but it's
start
like
taking the bump before contact.
Yeah, it's like extras in the background who are staring directly at the camera or drinking the punch too loudly, stuff like that.
Look, phaser fights are never what Star Trek is good at. That's a great shot of Garrick, though. So
I have to say the phaser rifles don't bother me as much. I'm starting to grow on me.
See? Yeah, you get used to them.
Oh, yeah. Give me a poster. Put it on a T-shirt right there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. So, anyway, everyone's dead. And then through the corpses strides Keevan, holding the communication device. Just so slimy. And they begin burial duty. And we don't need the rescue. We know it's coming. So, anyway, that is Rocks and Shoals. Mike, let's do a little after show.
AlamarEmmys, Capsule 4. Then one more. AlamarEmmys, it's AlamarEmmys time.
Bow.
You damn right.
All right, Mike, tell us your best moment.
I mean, in the showdown scene there, I think just close-ups, straight close-ups of Sisko, straight close-up of Philip Morris, really great. And it kind of encapsulates the whole episode. And, for me, as sort of still nebulous are the founders. Still learning of the sort of the Vorta of it all. They're hard to pin down. But what I love, we talked about picking up the breadcrumbs, is that all those little seeds we planted in that episode we were escaping from Terek Nor, or I'm sorry, from the prison when we found our Garrick and team on the prison.
Right.
And they made Worf do all that fighting, and we learned so much about the honor and sort of the integrity of the Jem Hadar, and also in that episode where we were fighting with them. At the time, I thought it was sort of lore, just character world building. But here we pay it off once again. And Sisko, they are, yes, the foot soldiers, but also I respect them quite a bit. They're in a shitey situation themselves.
Yeah.
And not only that, but they have sort of their, when you juxtapose it with what Kira's going through, the dilemma she's going through, and the preservation of her people is such a driving force, and yet that's exactly you didn't take the mark off your head.
I did not, no.
Yeah. That preservation of her people is such a driving force for her, and also for most species.
Yeah.
But these Jem Hadar, that's sort of been bred out of them. So here, the preservation of his men, the preservation of the Jem Hadar as a whole, is not their driving focus, which, yes, makes them great soldiers because they consider themselves dispensable. And I think even the Klingons, if you were to explore it, and maybe we do in an episode, right? That yes, dying is such an honor, but what if finding a way, would you sacrifice all of your men, or if it would bring harm to Klingon? Like, put in the same situation, I don't know, they're not exactly one-to-one. They have similarities, but they're not. Anyway, it's just awesome, and that scene really shows it, and you see Sisko's respect for the Jem Hadar, which I'm starting to get little tickles in my Trek feels.
Don't say pickle.
That maybe this could potentially be, maybe instead of, I've always thought, hey, if we destroy the Capsule White, we can get rid of the Jem Hadar, open up the Dominion because they don't have their force field anymore. Then again, why kill a whole species? Could we tag team, right? Could it be Ultimate Warrior and Hogan together?
Right. Can we sell them freedom?
So, I don't know. So if that's a seed we're planting, consider me planted. You know what I mean? Consider my root growing, Keith.
It changes the context of the whole blow up the Capsule White.
Right.
Because again, like, tactically, it is what's necessary to survive. But also, just be reminded, all of these, the only people with honor in this entire war, you're setting them up to die slowly and horribly.
Not only that, but it also, remember we always say they are not the bloodthirsty Gorn, which kind of like,
right,
gives them more, but they become that. Apparently, that's a little bit of a tidbit we learned this week, which I think is, how do you make your bad guy sympathetic and terrifying at the same time?
Right.
Congratulations, you've done so.
Yeah.
So that's my pick.
Yeah. So my best moment is honestly the juxtaposition of the two Kira montages.
Mm-hmm.
Her waking up, her sort of like getting coffee, getting on the elevator, doing all that kind of stuff, with the different context of her knowledge and her experience of it, and allowing the Nod to tell that story on her face, and to just add so much meaning to sort of banal life things. And I think the really good shows are good at that. You see that a lot in Vince Gilligan stuff, like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. We'll see the repetition of banal things in new context to tell a much different story. And I think it's just really good storytelling.
It also, speaking of serialized storytelling, it also is great because it ties directly to a scene, I believe, last week, where we're in the bar with Quark, and Quark's like, hey, y'all. They painted a very different picture last week, right? Hey, y'all. Remember Tarek Noor when it was dark and broody and people were screaming and it was like terrible? This occupation, pretty good as far as occupations go.
This could be much worse.
And so you're like, yeah, that's true. It could be much worse. Let's be thankful for that. Whereas now, Kira, we go through this experience, we're like, oh, wait, that's a false flag, right? That is just lulling us into this sense of normalcy, which is not right.
Right. And allowing injustice to happen because it could be worse. And that is always the argument of the tormentors, of the people in power, is, just like, take it. It could be worse.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that in the civil rights movement. You see that in lots of different oppressors versus people fighting up against it. Like, and there are some times where you have to think through that, right? In this election, right? Like, are the options perfect? No, especially if you're, if you're voting on what's happening in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And like, are either options on that perfect? No. Could it be much worse based on one option versus the other? Yes. Is it unsatisfying to vote for the less of the less worse of the options if you're concerned about, say, Gaza? Right? Yeah. Is that immensely unsatisfying? Yes. However, do you still have to make that choice because it could be much worse? Yes. It's so complicated.
It's so complicated. I want to honorable mention Sisko when he's like, you're all talking like this is a conversation. It's not. This is my choice to make. I'm Sisko. I can't find my censor. You catch my joke.
Yeah.
And let me do what I got to do, which is cool.
I mean, no, this is why people love Sisko so much. Because, come on, he's Sisko. He's Sisko. All right, let's hand out some stem balls.
You get some.
And we're gonna go for it.
Yeah, it's early. Well, it's not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah, the hits keep on coming. It does feel like we're in just like one long story right now. It's hard to identify them. I think this episode is excellent. The acting is excellent. I think they're able to once again do the thing I say all the time that I love, is ask the questions with no easy answers and not give you an answer. And once again, that can be unsatisfying, especially in your literature and in your content, in your movies, your TVs. When the ending that doesn't give you an answer and just leaves you dangling is never particularly, sometimes not satisfying, but it can be when it's done properly. And once again, I think this is done properly. It sucks the way this goes down. Our good guys, I mean, let's not forget, not only do we escape, yes. Does the Vorta get his way? Yeah. Do we ask Nog and all these people to like blow down these defenseless guys? Yes. And we didn't really even touch on that in our recap. Like, we murdered a lot of people this week.
Yeah.
Now to say we had the tactical advantage too, so it wasn't like it. Yeah.
It's war.
Yes. Yeah. Which war is a whole other. We're not getting into that now, but war is a thing in my body, that my brain, that is like, I'll give you this quick thing and then I'll back off of it. For me, sometimes I'm able to calm my anxiety out by zooming out, right, and going to the cosmos and just seeing how small we are, and then zooming and realizing like the insignificance factor. It kind of releases me of the hyper focus. But it also can go the other way. Sometimes I start thinking about it, and we're so minuscule and it's so immense, and the universe is so big that it just now I'm starting to feel suffocated. Right. That's what war does to me, because like, why are we why are we doing this, and why are the rules this, and the killing, and the how do you justify it, and how do you sit idly by, and how do you know war is happening in other places in the world, and people and kids are dying, and we're not doing anything, and it's and you feel like a terrible person, and you feel like completely helpless, but you also feel like you have to be to survive. Like, so it's insane.
Yeah.
And this captures that, and also juxtapose that. Yeah, like, I mean, that's what this episode's saying too, right? So they're doing, and then Kira's getting her rock to Gino from this guy. I'm sure he's nice. He's a nice Cardassian.
Right.
And,
yeah, sure, yeah.
It's, I'm sure there were like, the Nazi guys who were just like, well, I was just there. We didn't know. Well, I was just a farmer.
Right.
Dude, I don't have the answers, right? And I say this to Jen all the time, like for her, and I get it. I'm not coming at her. We're watching a movie, right, in a war movie, and she can watch people getting blown up, and she can conceptualize it, and she can deal with it. But like, if the horse gets killed,
right?
It
totally
throws her off the edge. And this episode is presenting that, right? And like, it's one of those. And I always say to her, I was like, you have to look at it. I'm not saying you have to understand it, or be able to comprehend it, or even be able to deal with it, but you have to look at it, right? We have to bear witness. Now, you might not agree. That's just me on 9/11, right? Like, I have some triggers with it, but I always go back on that day. My tribute is to watch it again and remember, right? So anyway, This episode I think, does a really good job of presenting that experience in a way that is like manageable in 40 couple of minutes. It also still brings the Jem Hadar back and says, hey, don't count them out as just foot soldiers. There's something else there. Hey, you're starting to like Wei Yun. You're starting to like Jeffrey Combs and his performance, and it's kind of funny and this and that. Don't forget, they're also that insidiousness, that car salesman might also screw you. You might get the nice car salesman who like helps get a deal on a Hyundai, or you could get the one that rips you off with the warranty and costs you $25,000, right? Like, you don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Sisko at his absolute peak. You get competence porn all over the place. You get Jake being competent. You get O'Brien being competent. You get the team doing great stuff. They're also badass soldiers. You get all the good stuff. I'm not going to put it in the pantheon of the greats only because none of these beats are new, right? We get some different looks, but we're sort of dealing with the same themes, right? That doesn't mean I don't love... Keith, I can't even wait to see next week. I'm just like on the edge of my seat. It's hard to judge them individually, but it's still great. I'm going 89 SSBs, triple SB, in fact.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. That doesn't mean I don't love it. It feels like I went from 98 to an 89. I'm just trying to like level set here, but it's great. You know what? 90. I want an A, nonetheless. 90.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I'll be very quick because we've been going for almost 2 hours now. But like,
somebody once told me this is what the people want. They want the long. Don't cut. Like, don't edit.
No, don't edit. No. They want all of it. No, but I need to eat some candy corn. I'm fading. I think this is a tremendous episode. I think all the stuff we talked about, all the moral quandaries, blah 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 blah.
There's really no notes.
No notes. Really no notes. I love seeing Jake's being an excellent reporter, asking good questions, asking the pertinent questions, and, thinking how far Jake has gone from the little boy who's running around causing mischief, and now he's a pretty credible reporter, even if he can't get the stories out yet. So I think that's great. Full Sisko, love it. I think the guest acting in this, Phil Morris, as we talked about, as Romantic Klon, and Christopher Shea as Kevin, I think give fantastic performances in this episode that make it all so much more real, makes it all so much more satisfying that it's not just an intellectual exercise, because you're getting these performances that are like fully endowed with all the emotion and sliminess or integrity, whatever it is. Really good stuff. The fact that we're on location and it looks so different makes this episode stick out in my head. I will always remember this episode because of how it looks. And it's sort of finishing the circle that began in the same location with the ship, right? Where they, it's a very similar episode, structured very similarly. And it sort of is, finishes the threequel about the ship. So anyway, really good. We're right in the meat. We're right in the meaty center. It's just so fun.
Speaking of meaty centers.
93. Yes, we all have a meaty center, Tux. Don't let him shame you. I give it 93 self-sealing stem bolts. On IMDb, it gets an 8.5, which makes this episode number 18 out of 173. Next week,
honey, we're going to be talking about, buddy. First of all, I called you honey again. That's somebody should be. Is someone taking note as how many times I call Keith honey? Yeah. That's 2 for 2. I mean, how long can the streak continue? Going back to last season, we got to be like the 6 bangers in a row by now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, certainly through the four in a row where we're all of our ratings are well into the 90s. So, we got some stuff coming up. Looking at the list here, so. There we are. So next week we are talking about sons and daughters. Everybody out there, if you haven't already, go vote, please. Vote as though the vulnerable people's life, the people in your life, need you. So hopefully everybody gets through safely before next episode. Take good care of yourself. This is a stressful time for everybody. Make
Do
good
we know
choices.
if we're going to shoot next week or
Self-care.
what our...
Hopefully.
Yeah, I don't see Wednesday we should. I mean, yeah.
Wednesday, maybe? I don't know. We'll see. We maybe even, if we look haggard and distracted and stressed out
I'm
now,
just trying, like, well...
just wait.
Politics aside, I'm trying to, like, I really want to shoot from home next week, from the other place next week, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure it out.
Well, there's a good chance it might be later in the week, like this week.
But we're here for you guys.
Always. So leave a comment.
You know what? Let me reaffirm just one more time. Like, Keith and I, we differ on how strong-armed we are with our politics and whatnot, but the truth is this. I really mean it. Regardless of where you sit, be kind to one another. That's all I'm asking.
And to yourself.
And to yourself, yes.
Yeah. Self-care, care for others. All right. We will see you back here next week with another episode of Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM.
Consider my root growing, Keith.